Right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining with us today. And also thanks to Manjula and the Chamber team for organizing this event with many constraints. And also, I must say the popular demand. We did a little bit of a litmus test to see the interest, and there was a significant interest. So the Chamber decided to go ahead. I'm Anand Mallotantri. I'm the chairman of panel of evaluators, and it's my great pleasure to serve in this panel uh, after some experience. So what I will do today is to initially to start the briefing by evaluators. I will take you through some of the points, and then we have a few speakers lined up to describe about the Best Corporate Citizen Main Award, and then uh, about the Corporate Citizen Sustainability Project Award. So let's get going. Again, thanks for joining, and hopefully this going to electronic media will not matter too much, hopefully. So this year's award, as you know, covers till 2020 March, and as Manjula said, it had been a challenging year. So we appreciate the continued participation. And this award allows the opportunity for the business, the corporate sector, to highlight any innovative approaches carried out within the company, and also how the corporates interact with clients, both the supply chain and as well as the direct business and then the post business. So we saw a lot of good examples coming during the last years, and we hope that the trend will continue. And as you're aware, I think those who participated in the award last few years, about 3 years ago, we started talking about business continuity and the risk management. And I think we saw it even more important, as Manjula said, several incidents, and also the global business climate is totally shifting, accommodating some of the risk management practices into core business. But luckily, some of our business had already thought about it, and we saw from the CEO notes. I should spend a minute and talk about this CEO statement we introduced, I believe, 3 years ago. The idea was that CEO and the board has a huge role to play in the sustainability agenda, especially in the risk management. So what we hear from the middle managers throughout, sometimes, not all, there is a lot of room for improvement of CEO guidance and CEO participation. So in addition to inserting the CEO statement on what the corporates are doing in terms of long-term sustainability and the CEO's vision, we intended to, we have several webinars lined up, and we intend to devote one of the webinars specifically for CEOs. Others can participate, but the main clients will be the CEOs. Hopefully that should add more value. Then, as always, we emphasize on the UN Sustainable Development Goals, which is badly affected now, but still these are the good guiding principles to go with. So as Manjula said, there are multiple awards. I'm not going to discuss each one, but it's suffice to say, even entry-level corporate can capitalize on one of these and score high, although they may not score well in the others. So there are multiple strategies a corporate can adopt in participating in the Best Corporate Citizen Award. And then, but we encourage covering all the areas, but certain companies has advantages in certain areas than others. So I think there's plenty of coverage, and then on the top you have the top set of awards, and then you have the category awards and the sector awards, and There are several awards the chamber introduced 2 years ago. Continued participation, that's one of them. So we have a good evaluation panel the chamber assembled. This panel evolved over the years, and so most of them are known, seasoned colleagues and fairly well versed in the subject. So we don't see any problem in providing a good sound evaluation in this year as well. So we are pretty confident with this solid evaluation panel. And then when it goes to the sustainability project awards, Dr. Kiran Dhanapal is the one leading, as always. Had been the last few years, and then we all support. There's a good set of evaluators, and Dr. Samara Vikram is a new addition in that group this year. So we hope that the project awards will also carry, as usual, a lot of innovative ideas and feedbacks. We have been making an effort to improve the awards scheme and the way we operate with the support of the excellent chamber secretariat. One thing we have been doing recently is to try to provide a good feedback. I believe most of you participated last year. All of you would have gotten the feedback already, both project awards as well as the main award. And then, as I indicated earlier, the involvement of the CEO was continually enhanced, and also we intend to do more this year as well. And also another part we have enhanced this year, and also we had been doing traditionally, is this allowing fair interaction between the evaluators and the applicants. It was coordinated by the chamber team. Anyone who wants ideas tested, and also guidance, the evaluation team had been fairly fair and open to accommodate some of those requests and help any corporate wanting. Not to say that how to write, but there are ways that we could help to improve the submissions. Then the evaluation process was continually changing, and as indicated, we have been trying to go with the global trends. And then we always encourage new entrants, and then we offer, because that's one of the reasons we have such a diverse set of awards. So the timeline is we are planning a second webinar. The chamber is contemplating to make it a CEO related seminar, and then another seminar. So these dates are pretty confirmed, but I would say all depend on the other factors. But hopefully we will be having the application closing on the 9th of October and award ceremony on the 27th of November. And the interviews of the final interviews, we haven't decided on the modality. We will discuss that at the time closer to that level. And then there's a lot of information. You already got this in your dockets, but information is available through the chamber website. So I'm not going to dwell too much it, but all these informations are already, or it will be uploaded. The marking scheme, we used to give the marking scheme at the launch normally, but we will be make available the marking scheme because unfortunately we have a little bit of a situation in our evaluation panel. Some of the Ms. Samaranayaka is not being able to participate today due to a family reason. So there are a few delays in our part. So we will make sure that this marking scheme will be available on the 17th August. In the application submission, these are all straightforward details. So this will be in the website. So I'm not going to dwell again. The payment details and the bank numbers and all those will be there in the chamber website. And then we have this excellent team in the chamber. I think only 2 leaders are here, but there's many supporting them. So pretty much in conclusion, in introduction, so award is designed to highlight the good work by corporates. By no means it's not a policing act, or it's not a criticizing modality. We encourage and we like to upscale some of the good practices across the sectors once you see them, and we also encourage the corporates to share some of those practices in a broader audiences, and this is one of the opportunities. And the evaluators, we keep very good positive attitude and go out and dig to find the innovative and relevant materials in your submission. So as a result, we are watching a lot of videos, a lot of different things. So we encourage, we don't mind watching videos, we don't mind reading reports. So we encourage you to pack it in a nice way so that the information will come through easily. Our reading will not be disturbed, and then we'll have to go digging for the additional information or calling you to get clarifications. But we do that also. And in all that, we seek the cooperation of applicants to make the process smooth by providing the supporting material. And also, we encourage you to use your annual reports as much as you can, but please make good references, put tags, label it nicely so that we can easily go back and forth and get the right information, so that in the application also, it will be very tight and nicely presented, and then still you are not losing information. So we are looking forward for another good year, and again, all the best. And I will be doing Ms. Amaranaka's presentation in a while. So then I'm going to transfer I'm going to request Mr. Ravi Silva, who is doing the environment, to do the presentation. There again, unfortunately, Mr. Senapir is caught dengue and he is in the hospital. So Ravi will do the honors on the environment. Ravi?
Thanks to everyone who has organized this. A lot of effort has gone into organize this, and we are there to help you to fill up your applications through a system of understanding what the questions are. So I thought I will give it to you in point form, because environment obviously is vital. All our resources come from the environment. So I would like you to make a note of these points only, so that you can when you are filling the application, it will be helpful to you. Now we have divided this into 3 sections. The first one is environmental commitment. So first thing is, it should be very clear in the application that there is corporate commitment. The environment should be a corporate priority. It must be inbuilt into not only your working conditions, but also your planning and all other aspects. The policy must be written, and it must be done by the head of the division, and must be signed by him and dated, so that we all know that he was involved in getting this thing done. Can get anybody's help, but the signature and the date are very important on a written policy. Then the investment of resources. How much of resources you have invested towards the environmental commitment? Resources means it comes as human resources, financial, and various time, other infrastructure which is necessary for you to make sure that your commitment towards environment is fulfilled. Then nothing happens unless people are trained to do it. You can send circulars and give instructions, but unless people are trained, this doesn't mean real formal long time training, but whoever who is involved, who will be involved in making an impact on the environment. Obviously, all your actions, there's an impact on the environment. Whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you are doing, you are impacting on the environment. So you should be able to understand what your impacts are and you should be trained to make sure that you negate the impacts or mitigate the impacts. Then education, internal and external, what we mean is reading matter, lectures, discussions, etc. internally, as well as you can send your people outside for seminars, etc. Or even have these now, of course, it's all webinars and things like that, where people are trained and given an education background of the importance of environment, what the environment is and what your impacts are, and how you can manage and control it. Now, to do that, you need management systems. Now, even if you have a corporate priority, that environment should be given good emphasis and certain things should be done, nothing will be done unless you have a system. So the management system should be, established. And if you have a management system only, you can go for local as well as global standards. I mean, you can't go for any standards and for any certification unless you have a system. So you should develop your own management systems. Innovation takes priority because without innovation, there is no progress and there is no continual improvement. Now, continual improvement is a very, very essential factor. And for that, you must encourage innovation. People can make mistakes. What happens is, when you do things, you can make mistakes and it might even be costly. But you just go through it to make sure that correct and do it, go through it. So make sure that you do something new and something much better than what you're doing. And today the emphasis is on a circular economy, on a green economy, where waste is minimized and maximum use is made of resources. So you should have that at the back of your mind when you are planning your operations and executing them. Now, environmental integration. Now, compliance is very important. To tell you the fact that when you look at the ordinances and acts and rules and regulations, you have more than 65 ordinances which refer to the environment as a subject. But you, as an operator in the market, you must make sure that you comply with whatever legal requirements that you are expected to comply. That means you should know what those legal requirements are. You can make a legal register, you can make a register of all the necessary laws and regulations and other requirements and make sure that you comply with them. Because if you don't comply, whatever system you have, you're gone. So then you can go for standards. There are various global standards, even regional standards, local standards, which will help you to manage your environment. Now, managing the environment means managing your impacts on the environment as a result of your activities. As I told you earlier, everyone impacts on the environment with everything that you do every day at any time, anywhere. So therefore, if you comply, if you conform to certain standards, it makes the whole operation very much easier. Then the resource efficiency and cleaner production. Now, these are techniques that will help you. This doesn't mean that you should essentially be practicing this, but it will be very helpful if you adopt these systems of resource efficiency. Then what you're doing is you're minimizing your resources. Obviously, it has the financial impact as well as the environmental impact. And then in your process, you're clean. Clean means you do not pollute the environment. You're controlling your pollution and your waste is managed properly. Now, the latest where energy is concerned is going for renewables because the whole world is facing this crisis of using non-renewable resources such as coal and oil and all that. In Sri Lanka, almost 80% of the energy you get is from these sources. So the more you go for renewables like solar and wind and hydro, etc., you're definitely managing your environment. You're reducing your adverse impacts. Pollution is very, very important you as an operator is environmentally friendly, who is
make sure that none of your operations will cause any pollution to air, water, or land. And the supply chain is another important factor. However good you are, your supply chain is not managed, you will not be able to have a clean job. Now the next one is contribution beyond.
Environment is everybody's business. You cannot be an island and do what you are doing and be happy about it if people around you, your suppliers, your customers, etc., are not as friendly as you. So you can encourage different eco-friendly the community in many ways, and those are innovative things. You can have your own way of doing things, but make sure that all your projects are eco-friendly. Then conservation and biodiversity are extremely important. So if you apply these, if you see what your impacts are and you manage those impacts and manage the environment, then obviously you're contributing to conservation. And biodiversity is extremely important because we are a country which is quite high in biodiversity, and we should make sure we have, because then only you will be sure that you will have enough resources for the future. You can be sustainable. And you must also have an appreciation of the ecosystem services, what the ecosystems do for you, and how you can protect them, protect it, and help yourselves. Thank you.
Thanks, Ravi. Hope everyone heard. It was a little bit of a discussion, but we can catch up on during the questions time if there's any clarification required. Thanks, Ravi, again. Switching to presentation, that's community relations and supply relations. As indicated, Ms. Amaranayaka is not available, so I'll have the pleasure in having that presentation for us. All right. So basically, in this section on relations and supply relations, we are looking at the strategic ways the CSR is used to promote the sustainability in the both ends, the suppliers and the clients, and right throughout the value chain. So there are multiple things already the corporates are doing in this side, ensuring the green suppliers and selecting buyers and all that. We encourage, I think one of the areas we noticed during the last few years is the documentation. We know that there are a lot of good things happening, but the communication and the presentation of the schemes, especially the rating, how you account, do you carry out any surveys or any benchmarking? Those are the kind of things that we saw as potential improvements during the last few years. And then the purchasing schemes, how those were implemented, and then how you find the clients. And so there are different trades, has different type of clients. Agriculture clients are different to industrial clients, and they are all different to the banking. So then how do you adapt sustainable and especially the skill systems in the business? And another factor is how much employee engagement do you let people working inside participate in these schemes, to go and do the visits, work with the clients and encourage them, that kind of angles. Next slide, please. So there are multiple interventions. There are some are community projects, some are very niche interventions. So we like to see how those were initiated and and how those things act. And most importantly, how at the end of the project, how they will be continued. Otherwise, the sustainability of the initiative, how it was ensured in the design itself. So then the details, some projects are totally financed by the corporate, some can be co-financed by others, some co-financed with the government or by the communities. So then how much leveraging or how much how this financing is restructured, because this is very important in the when it comes to the sustainability aspect of the project. If the project is structured financially properly, the likelihood of the sustainability, we believe, will go up. And then, of course, as indicated earlier, the innovative practices and the lessons learned. Here, we like you to provide good succinct case studies, good indicators, and then how, I think this is where the creativity comes in presentation. And then also we like to hear about other projects you are doing along with this project, so that we can get a gauging about the overall CSR special project portfolio. And this sometimes it's not abnormal to run into failures, run into challenges, and that's also lessons learned. So most of the time, some people think if there's no success, there's no lesson. No, the other way around also. There are lessons in the failures as well, which will contribute to the long-term success of the projects. Next slide, please. Then the sustainability of interventions, as indicated earlier, the evaluation. Evaluation is a key tool. And then we like to know whether the evaluations, if there was any done, and if there were, who did it, whether it was done internally. There's nothing wrong in doing it internally, but sometimes using another fresh set of eyes and ears might help. So like to know the details. And then this is another important part. This is again the CEO's inputs will come in. The strategic value of undertaking the project. Why you did it? What's there in for the core agenda of the business? That again, how it fits in the broader context will be a very good indicator for us to evaluate the connection of the project as into the core business. Then the outcome of the projects and the intended benefits. So what do you start with? Whether your initial objectives were served after the project, or at the middle of the project, or at the end of the project, or do you need more interventions and more partners and more resources to get into the next level? Because these are the information that will help in the upscaling. And then the follow-up actions. Another aspect we are looking at is the upscaling potential. Can we mainstream the lessons learned from this project and then translate that into other national applications, and whether the other corporates can follow suit? So this upscaling potential is something that you can be very creative and calculate. Now, say, for example, a small patch of forest or small energy-saving device or anything, you could say there are this number of similar applications are available locally as well as internationally. So this project, the finding, if upscale, will create this much of benefits. There's no harm going beyond the project and project the potential benefit. So those are some of the things in the area of community relations and supply relations. We are really looking for innovative ways that you are also dealing with the clients. How much influence your clients will be having from your core business, so that they will change their lifestyles, because we are talking about a transformational change, especially in this COVID-19 period, how much you could change mindsets of the clients and the people. So those are some of the ideas we can catch up again in the discussion time. So thank you again. And let me turn to the next presentation. It's done by Mr. Ajit Ratnayake on governance, financial performance, and economic contributions. Ajit, over to you.
Yeah.
Okay. Ajit.
Okay. Thanks, Anand, for giving me the.
Ajit, we cannot hear.
You can't hear?
Okay, good.
Can we hear now?
Yes, very well, Ajit. Go ahead. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much, Anand. Now, I will be dealing with the area relating to economic section. It's one of the triple bottom line sections, because the triple bottom line are the environmental, social, economic, and one of those is economic. And under economic, we have three areas, which is governance, financial performance, and economic contribution. So I will be explaining about the governance, economic, financial performance, and economic contribution. The first section that I will deal now is governance. In relation to governance, on the application, you will find a note saying that in relation to branches of foreign companies. Now, some of the companies that apply, some of the entities that apply will be the branches of foreign companies. And it will be important to note that all information that we will give, that you need to give in relation to a branch, to the branch and not to the company. So don't give information relating to your company which is abroad, but you will need to give information relating to the branch. And in relation to the branch, in the first section, you will find in the first section there is a reference to board structure or the governance structure. Now, governance structure will not be addressed by the branches of foreign companies. You will need to give an explanation relating to your own governance structure of the branch. So the governance structure of the branch will need to be explained, which also you could include how the branch is monitored, controlled, and assisted by either regional management or global management, and the process that also is part of the governance structure of that particular branch. In addition to that, you will have the governance within the branch itself, how the branch itself ensures good governance practices, and how the branch is structured in order to give you a good governance structure. So that is what we need to expect from branches of foreign companies. So branches of foreign company need not enter section 1. They will need to give this information that I mentioned just now as the information that is required from a branch of foreign company. Then if you look at the governance area, you'll find you'll need to give information relating to the, for instance, examples like total number of members of the board, non-executive directors in the board, independent non-executive directors of the board, and so on. When you give that information, please give the references in the annual report. Annual report will give that information in relation to how many of these members you have in the board. So you will need to give the references so that it's easy for the staff to find out the evidence or some kind of confirmation relating to those areas. So that is one thing that we need to emphasize on. Then we also have additional information relating to the compliance with standards. in the annual report. For instance, if you are complying with GRI sustainability reporting standards, then give the reference to the GRI content index. Which page is your GRI context index is in? And also, if you will need to state whether you're complying with whether it's in accordance with the comprehensive basis or whether it's in accordance with core. In addition to that, if you also comply with integrated reporting, then please give the reference of the page where the compliance with integrated reporting is reported. Compliance, the reporting where we will report that there is a compliance with integrated reporting, that page number should be indicated so that we can find it easily. Otherwise, in a big annual report, sometimes we find it difficult to find this information in the annual report. You will also need to include the annual report in the submission so that we will be able to look at those information from the annual report also. So the annual, one of the things we found in the initial stages is that we found private companies were not quite willing to submit the financial statements and so on. But eventually, we have been able to gain confidence from the private sector entities to submit their financial statements. Those financial statements will be used only for this purpose and they'll be kept confidential. So you could now, without any fear, submit the financial statements to the board, to the chambers in order for the help in the evaluation. There are two additional areas that we have identified in this time. That is to briefly describe the business contingency requirements relevant to your industry or sector, if any, and also explain your business contingency plan and its implementation effectiveness during the year ended 31st March 2020. So you will need to explain your business contingency requirements that are relevant to the industry. So that's one part. So you will need to explain what is relevant and explain what is your contingency plan and what is your implementation effectiveness during the year. We have had a couple of incidents during the last year. One was the bomb blast, which we had in the early part of the year, and also in the later part of the year we had the COVID-19 coming up, and so you would have faced these contingencies, and also you can explain how you effectively met those contingencies during the year. Then in section 2, we have the quality of the board. In requirement in relation to quality of the board, you will need to first identify and explain what are the expertise that you have identified as required by the board. So the expertise required will have to be first identified and identified separately. After that, you will need to explain who are the board members who are providing that expertise. So that is the approach that we need to take. First, identify the expertise and then identify the board members who meet those expertise. Some of the earlier stages, we found that when we asked this question about the expertise identified and the members who are representing those expertise, we found that some of the companies had just given reference to the annual report pages where those board members are given, and they expected us to look at the qualification, the experience of the board members and then identify it. But we are looking at in a different way. We are looking at first to see whether the organization has identified the expertise required. Like you might need marketing expertise, finance expertise, industry expertise. So you will need to identify these are the expertise we have identified. These are the expertise we need, and then identify who the board members are who represent that expertise. Then you will need to, as in the third column we have given there, which shows that you will need to show the experience and qualifications of the member, indicating that required expertise is available. So that is the structure that we're looking at in terms of the quality of the board. Then next we have the measures against corruption. Corruption is an area that the entities can assist in terms of improving our national governance structure. The lack of corruption is an important part if we are going to develop as a country. So we want the private sector to contribute towards improving the corruption status of this country and reduce the corruption amount. So the companies can take measures to ensure that the company itself doesn't contribute to corruption. What we need to see is whether the company has a policy on not engaging in corruption, and also that the employees know that this is the policy of the company, that the policy of the company is not to engage in corruption and not to be a part of the corruption process of this nation. So what we are looking for is a policy document from the company. This is our policy relating to corruption, and how that policy is communicated to the employees. So the employees also are aware that the company will not engage in corruption, and that is the direction that the company is taking. So what we want to see is that zero tolerance on corrupt practices is adopted as a policy and how it is implemented. Then we have financial performance. In relation to financial performance, we have identified certain items that will need to be included in the application. We could also look at it further by looking at the financial statements. So that information will also be available for us to look at, though it's not there in the document, but financial statements will be required for us to look into those information further, so that if there's anything more we need to look at, we can look at those information as well. Then in filling up this area, there are some areas that are not particularly applicable for banks and finance companies and insurance companies. So banks, finance companies, and insurance companies will not need to fill areas relating to, for instance, inventory, current assets, and current liabilities. So those information need not be filled by the banks and insurance companies and finance companies, but they will need to provide additional information which is given below. So that is a special area which identifies what banks and finance companies will need to fill additionally, which is Tier 1 capital adequacy ratio, Tier 1 and 2 capital adequacy ratio, and in relation to insurance companies, total available capital and risk-based capital requirement and risk-based capital adequacy ratio. So those information will have to be provided by insurance companies. Then the third category under the economic section is economic contribution. To evaluate economic contribution, we would like you to have a value-added statement attached. If you have a value-added statement already, then you can include it. Otherwise, you could provide a value-added statement. If you don't have, you can still provide the application, but you might lose some marks if you don't have a value-added statement. But you will still get some marks, because they will look at the other information available, and we will consider those information available in giving the value-added marks for value-added. But if you can provide a value-added statement, that will be useful, so that you will get the maximum marks that you could get for value-added. Then contribution to national and regional development. Under that, we have a couple of areas. One is investments in buildings, plant, equipment during the last financial year. Here, we have asked for separation of those investments. These are additional investments that we have made during the year. So any additional investments you have put in to buildings, plant, and equipment, you will need to state here. You can state here, and those additions will like you to identify these categories: Colombo and Gampa districts, low-income provinces, North and East, UA, which are identified as low-income provinces, rest of the country, and total investments. And also, we like you to give the additions to property, plant, and equipment as indicated in the relevant note in the financial statements. So you would like to give that information and reference to the note below that. So if there is a difference between the total investments that you are giving here and the additions to property, plant, and equipment as indicated in the relevant note in the financial statements, then we would like you to give a reconciliation of what the difference is, so that you can reconcile the difference between total investments and additions to property, plant, and equipment indicated in the relevant note in the financial statements, so that we will know why there is a difference. So we will look for those two figures and we will see whether there is a difference, and if there is a difference, we'll need an explanation as to what that difference is. So that is in relation to investments in buildings, plant, and equipment during the year. There is a reason why we have identified the low-income provinces. Particularly, you will see that the per capita GNP of the country is heavily weighted on Colombo and Gampa, and the rest of the country per capita GNP is quite low. There is a big difference between the per capita income, and if we can raise the per capita income in the rest of the country by companies engaging in some of those activities in the rest of the country, it will help those areas, and it will also help the total overall GNP of the country as well. So contribution to particularly to the lower income provinces like North, East, and UA and the rest of the country are very useful indicators of how you contribute to the economy by improving the disparity between different areas in the country. Disparity is a significant issue here, and is also help in sustainable development goals if we improve our economic contribution in the low income provinces. In fact, in the years in which we have improved the per capita GNP of the nation as a whole, the most of the improvement came from North, East, UA areas, and then also in some of those in the rest of the country as well. So your contribution in activities, in engaging in activities in North, East, UA areas will help the overall national GNP and the overall economy of the country. So that is one area that we are also looking at in terms of looking at economic contribution. When we come to employees, we also have the same information. Colombo, Gampa districts, low-income provinces, rest of the country, and number outside the country also is included here, and total. Even in the other one, even in the top one, the one above that, in relation to investments, if some companies may have done investments outside the country, then you can indicate that also separately as one of the additional items that include. There is no case for that in this particular application form, but you can include an additional case for outside the country, so that we will know how much you have invested outside the country as well. There is a contribution to the country by investing outside the country, because you will get subsequent income from that source. Yeah,
Thank you.
I think that completes my area. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ajit. Thank you so much for the detailed information. Next presentation is by Dr. Ravi Fernando on customer relations. Ravi, all yours.
Okay. A very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I can see we have about 102 people watching this. Okay, so what I'm going to do very quickly is to run through the 4 elements of the customer relations project. But let me start by saying that whatever business you're in, the lifeblood of your business depends on 2 things: the product and services you have, and the customers and clients that finally buy them. and service and give you a business. So what we are trying to do in this section is to understand how much attention you're paying to the product and services from a marketing and sustainability perspective. Number two, how much attention you're paying to customers in terms of getting feedback, etc. Okay, so let me start by first drawing your attention this year to a new section at the bottom of the second page next to section 3, where I have suggested that you start with identifying your database of customers. And each business can identify this in a creative way, where you can probably talk of A class, B, and C class customers. A meaning, contributing over 80% of your business, and how you look at the B and C customers. So in that, first complete the database format before you go into answering any questions. And I'm not going to go into detail of those questions, but first point is to get your customer database in fact and data form in your presentation. Then we'll first start with section 1, which is the product or service responsibility area. And I think it's useful if there is analysis of your product portfolio or your service portfolio, if you're a service business. So if, for example, you have 10 products in your service portfolio and 2 of them contribute 90%, 80% of your business, I think you should mention that. So in terms of product or service portfolio, give us a feel for what is your portfolio and what are the key contributors to business from that portfolio. And in terms of that, we are really looking mostly in terms of any product or service complaints that you get, and we want to understand how you are handling those complaints. And in the chart I referred to, there is a section which says number of customers from whom complaints were received as a percentage of the database. And that is really what we are looking for under the section 1. We now go into section 2, which is responsible marketing in terms of the business. Now, one thing I want to make very clear to everyone is when we talk about responsible marketing and responsible business, obviously we are not going to be very happy with companies who are in any way in the public domain for irresponsible marketing or irresponsible business. So we will obviously keep our eyes and ears open to what is being said about some of these companies in the public domain. And I think one of the key elements that might help us here is to understand what is the company's policy in terms of ensuring that your products and services are not compromising the planet over profit. What is the company policy in terms of responsibility? Then the next area is what kind of mechanisms you have put in place to ensure that there's customer engagement. Now, in the past 2 or 3 years, when we were marking this section, we found extremely general answers. So this time around, we don't want general answers. What we are looking for is once you fill in the database format that I referred to as the first thing to be done, if we are talking about feedback, there is a figure there as a percentage of your database. Then we will know as a percentage of your total customer universe, what percentage of people gave you feedback and how did you handle that feedback. Then the response taken and satisfaction measured is absolutely key. And again, when you address negative impacts, please don't say we had a few complaints. Please say as a percentage of our database, we had X number of feedback, negative impacts, and here's how we handle them is what we are looking at. And this time round, we have introduced a new section under responsible marketing, responsible business, in terms of the whole area of what we call a health and any emergency response strategy. So I've called it a code red crisis management and communication strategy. So when we had COVID-19, I'm sure many of you will agree, most companies were caught unawares. But I can tell you in the future, for example, even if you have a second wave of the pandemic, there has now got to be a code red strategy, which is mapped out in terms of both your response and also how you're going to communicate it to your customers and in terms of your internal customers as well and your supply chain. So under 2.4, what we're looking for is a good code red strategy. Now, we are not looking for the 50-page document. You can develop a 50-page document, but what we are looking for is bullet points on here are the key things that we have done, and you can attach the document if you want as an appendix. Okay. We've also introduced a comment on marketing communications and gender stereotyping. So one of the things we are looking for from enlightened businesses is to ensure that we don't go into gender stereotyping in your communication. And this is something we are looking for quite intensely this time. Then the third section is customer dialogue. And again, what we are looking for is as a percentage of your total database, what percentage have you been encouraging regular feedback and customer dialogue with? So let's say you have 50,000 customers in your database. In terms of a sample size, maybe even if you have 500 in that sample size whom you have picked for regular feedback, then how frequently are you getting feedback and what kind of feedback have you got and what did you do about that feedback? And that is the customer dialogue section. Finally, we have a section called future orientation. So in this day and age, managing end consumer databases is going to be paramount. And in the past, we used to manage this simply with IoT, with the Internet of Things. But now the new paradigm in terms of future orientation, at least the way we will be looking at this, is this company now beginning to mobilize artificial intelligence in managing its future database, its databases, to understand the predictive opportunity in terms of information. So in terms of the final section, please pay attention to the future strategy that you are having in mind. Don't simply say we are having a future strategy, but if you are having one, please let us know when you all will mobilize an AI-driven database management strategy, which will give you predictive data in terms of your future orientation. So in summary, what we are really looking for is the way you manage the most important customer and consumer base, which finally will make or break your business. And how are you managing them? How sensitively are you managing them? And how well are you responding to them? So thank you for listening, and back to Ananda.
Thank you, Ravi. Really appreciate. And this is a new area, the award added, and we are really looking forward for good responses in this area. The next presentation is by Mr. Kanishka Veerasinghe on employee relations. Kanishka, hope you are there. All yours.
Yeah, Anand, I joined over my phone because I'm outside office. I had to come out for urgent matter. Oshadi, will you be able to display that format?
Yes, of course. Whitney is already working on it, and it will be on the screen soon. Kanishka, you are very clear. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. Until then, I thought I'll just drop a few general comments that we see. There are some, gaps that we see every year. I must say that, we look for consistency. And also, when you're filling up your formats, please ensure that, you give details of what you all have done. For example, in relation to this, in section 1, we are talking about significant achievements during the year 2019-2020. So when you're talking about strengthening employee relations at the workplace, give specific policies as well as how you have implemented those policies on ground. It could be in relation to strengthening, for example, a grievance handling procedure, or it might be implementing a performance development plan where there is feedback obtained, or 360-degree approach and things like that. So there are lots of ways of strengthening employee relations as well. It's not only in terms of collective bargaining, or maybe with regard to we always think of the blue collar workers when we talk of strengthening employee relations. But no, it also it implies that you need to have a consistent policy for all your employees from top to bottom, irrespective of whether they are executives or not. So we are looking for consistency, and we will also look for processes that you all have implemented in improving employee relations, especially in relation to the white collar types, the executives, because sometimes we take such categories for granted, which should not be the case. Then employee training and development, of course, those you can back up by information with regard to the budgets and the programs, and you need to show, maybe you can, if you can link it to how these have helped employees to develop, that will also be helpful. So that's some additional information that we are looking for. Of course, with regard to persons with disabilities, you can actually show how you have implemented policy. Again, we are looking for consistency. Sometimes companies mention policy, but it's unclear as to how you all have implemented them, and how you all are facilitating persons with disabilities to come on board. Same goes for increasing female employment and opportunities for females to join the workforce and things like that. And whilst they are in the workforce, what are the facilities that you all provide? Do you all provide various processes? I mean, there can be career breaks. It could be by way of offering flexible hours and things like that. And this, again, we are looking for consistency when it comes to implementation of policy. Others are fairly clear. And policy on sexual harassment and violence against women. Well, tell us whether you all have implemented, things like having an ombudsman, or any special processes that you all have followed. It could be maybe you can even cite the policy actually being implemented, the number of cases being reported, or number of clarifications being sought. It need not be cases being reported. Sometimes people want to clarify with regard to certain situations to the ombudsman, or through a special grievance handling process. So these are some of the things that we will be looking for. Promotions, well, it's not a case of saying, okay, number of people were promoted, but whether those promotions were actually required by the company, and how it has helped the company to achieve its objectives. Maybe if you can link it to some practical aspects, link it to the performance of the company, it will be very helpful. Can we go to the next challenges and strategies? Section 3, Oshadi.
Yes, it's on.
Yeah, now here we are making, Anand, this time, and colleagues who are participating, this time we are making a slight difference in approach, because we are identifying the challenges that you would have already faced in terms of your business, but also this with regard to the current crisis. There are 3 specific questions that we have posed in the event you are going to answer the first question in the affirmative. I think you can actually, the questions are very clear. It will be good if you can give us very clear, concise answers. I believe I listened to Ajit and Ravi as well, giving very specific, there are very specific ways in which you can actually express your views and give data. I think this section also you can actually capture the same information, but in a slightly different way. But place your information in relation to this as well. But try to make it focused in relation to employment. Those are my thoughts, Ananda and colleagues who are participating. So we sincerely hope that this time around too, you will make that extra effort to give us that additional information. Don't take it for granted. Please give as much as information as possible. Sometimes we have also had, for example, companies which have collective bargaining, trade unions, and good employee relations, not mentioning those aspects. So we want information with regard to all of that. And also we are looking for consistency. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kanishka. Wonderful. Thank you so much. And that ends the set of presentations related to the Best Corporate Citizen Main Award. And we are about 8 minutes behind. It's not so bad. It's my pleasure to turn to the briefing on the Best Project Sustainability Award. Dr. Kiran Dhanapala is the lead person on that. We all support her in this one. And Kiran, can I turn over to you to take the lead?
Thank you very much, Anand. Welcome to everybody this afternoon. I'm going to go straight into my presentation. We have 5 evaluators this year on our panel for the Best Sustainability Projects Awards. They are all listed here, and we have to thank all of them for putting in their time for this awards process. I want to very quickly go into a quick overview of sustainability. Some of us may have already seen these graphs, but this is how much we exhaust our natural resources budget in the year for a year. So actually, last year we exhausted it sooner on the 29th of July. This year, because of COVID and the fact that we all had to kind of be on a giant pause, the entire world almost, we actually managed to stretch out our year's budget until the 22nd of August. And I thought that was really important to kind of show how actually these kinds of crises affect us in negative ways, but also in positive ways sometimes. And the challenge is, how do we do better in this context? So we've all seen this whole thing of flattening the curve. We've all talking about social distancing practices, flattening the curve. But there's also another curve, which is the Earth's capacity. And how do we not go just back to business as usual, but try to look at sustainability as a priority over time and keep within the Earth's capacity. So very quickly, we are looking in the projects awards at different aspects of sustainability: social, environmental, economic. Governance is also included under the social. And we are definitely giving a bonus point if a project looks at all those 3 aspects. But definitely you need to say which aspect you're looking at and how it fits within your overall company strategy and policy, and show that connection. So basically, a company sustainability needs all these 3 aspects, including the green and the CSR as well. It also sometimes is called the 3 E's or the 3 P's or the triple bottom line. And so as I said, we're really looking at the fact that all these 3 legs of sustainability are equally important. And we can certainly have one project which contributes to one aspect, but we need to be very clear on how and how your broader strategy as a company looks at all those aspects as well. So also to be aware that you have both opportunities and risks in sustainability, and you may have projects which are to do with the opportunity side. So for example, cost savings and looking at savings in natural resources, or innovation, or some kind of product innovation. But you also may look at the risk side as well, and you might be looking at supply chain vulnerabilities. We've all seen how focusing a supply chain only on one country can bring about a huge vulnerability to our businesses more recently. There are other kinds of vulnerabilities as well, or risks, and we need to, climate risks is one example. So we need to be, we can have projects which address both of these sides, and being more risk resilient is certainly a project in itself, but you need to specify how, why, and how, and how you're doing this. So what is a project? Basically, your sustainability plan will look like this over, say, 20 years. And each of these colors denote a particular kind of project, which may run for 2 years, 1 year, 5 years, 7 years, whatever. So your application will be one of those projects which run over several years, preferably, and which show impact. So rather than immediately reporting on a project perhaps that has just started, you want to focus on a project which is has already yielded some kind of evidence of impact. So you've had enough time to be able to collect the data and be able to monitor the project, perhaps even evaluate it, have certain kinds of results and KPIs, and be able to show us the evidence of impact against the kinds of aims of the project. We've also, as of last year, the Chambers introduced the Gender Projects Award, which is a sub-award in this category. So this takes note of the fact that there are structural inequities in relation to gender. And we also have a low labor participation rate for women in Sri Lanka, which we want to address if we're going to move forward and develop as an economy and as a country. So there might be projects which relate to education, health, decent work, or looking at better representation in political and economic decision making, or legal frameworks, workplace equality issues, things like that. So those may be projects that you want to put forward. We also are looking at, how lessons of the disruptions, building back better hashtag is now a kind of common feature all over, where we're all struggling in how do we build back better from this crisis? What are the lessons, project disruptions, changes made perhaps also during this period? How have you perhaps had to look at resilience and investing in resilience, adaptive capacity, emergency preparedness, initiatives for new needs perhaps that have come about? And the fact that this COVID crisis is really, as someone already mentioned, one of our fellow presenters, is really just a small thing of what is to come with climate change disruptions. So really putting in these kinds of measures and looking into being more nimble is going to be very important. So the project form is very clear. You need to be able to say why you're having this project, the rationale, who is it targeting, what the project is, how are you trying to do it, monitoring this project, what is the kind of indicators and outputs you've put in, what are the outcomes in terms of impact, actually show what these KPIs are. And then finally, what happens when the project ends? What comes next? Is it scaled up into something? Is it translated into different parts of the company? Is it handed over? Whatever. So we really do need to see what happens after the project ends. So we also ask this year, what is the project contribution, not just to the SDGs in a broad sense, but now we're going into the target level. So we'd like you to actually look into more detail this year into the targets and be able to relate to those targets in a more concrete and detailed fashion. We basically are looking for evidence of impact. We are looking for innovation. Why is this project different? Again, as I said, the SDG linkages at the target level, gender is an issue, and also any SME or social enterprise involvement also you should highlight. We have also any implementation and certifications that you've got during this project period, important to have. We have the application guidelines, which are very, very clear. We even have a marking scheme, and we are very clear also on the kinds of limits in terms of pages, in terms of no annexes, and things like that. So we would like to see more evidence. You can have disaggregated data by gender, age, whatever, social economic groups or geography. Graphs are always good to use, and be able to convey your information in a very short and sweet way. We want you to really focus on the rationale, the logic, and both quantitative and qualitative evidence. It's always a good idea to ask someone who's not familiar with your project to kind of read it and ask questions and see whether they understand it. Make sure you list all the acronyms and what it stands for, and be very clear and concise. Very basic things, but you'll be surprised at how many people don't do these things. So really focusing on evidence and data to support your project outputs, outcomes, and impacts. We're looking at reach as well as impact. So, how many targets or outputs, how many workshops, but also really how many people have used those workshops, for example, or learned and done something with it. So also please avoid jargons, things like sustainability is in our DNA. Those are meaningless kind of phrases. And we're really looking at substance rather than this kind of jargon. I think the benefits of the awards process for all of you who are applying is that you get clear over your project. I think the whole exercise is an exercise on becoming very clear on what you want to do, how your project performs versus other projects. It's an opportunity to shine and really see how your project contributes to Sri Lanka's SDG achievement, and then being able to get the feedback and comments to strengthen your sustainability efforts. So the judges have trying this year as last year to give specific comments to project applicants, so that you will actually find this a very learning and useful process, and you will enjoy this process as well. I'd just like to end and say the UN Secretary General very recently at the Nelson Mandela Lecture this month talked about how that COVID-19 is a human tragedy, but it also has created a generational opportunity, an opportunity to build back better, a more equal and sustainable world. And all of you, through your projects, actually help to do that. So a big thanks to all of you for putting in your projects, putting in the hard work to make those clear, easy to read, and something that we hope you will also enjoy learning from. Thank you very much. Over to you, Ananda.
Thanks, Kiran. I think I must add, Dr. Kiran Dhanapal had made a small guidance document that also will be uploaded in the Chamber website to download along with the application. So thanks, Kiran, for that nice document, which will really help the applicants to get a better sense. We are uploading all the presentations in the Chamber website. So again, thanks to everyone, all the presenters. We are right on the dot on the time. Especially Kiran, I think got the time back to the schedule. So we have some time to answer a few questions and discuss few ideas. And I think it's already a few questions on the board. Ravi, Dr. Ravi Fernand, if you are on, I think first question is from Mr. Charithara Twate on the judges monitoring public spheres. I believe, I think I will probably say one thing before I turn it to Dr. Ravi Fernando. We based our evaluations mostly on the submissions, but it doesn't say that if there's anything huge happening in the country and all the judges are going to hear it and will have a little bit of an indication, but it doesn't mean that we will be subjected to any bubble effects or any social media driven pushers, I would call it. Ravi, do you want to answer that question? Ravi?
Yeah. Okay.
Dr. Ravi Fernando, you can see the question in the chat box.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw the question. Okay, so I think for everyone's benefit, for Charithas and everyone's benefit, I think Ananda has already told you that when we judge, obviously we are going to be judging based on your submissions. But at the same time, if there is something in the public media which is clearly relevant in terms of a company who has applied, we are all going to see. I mean, there's no question about us going into the social media so much. I would probably look at the public media of television, press, and radio, if there are any comments about that company. And for example, I mean, this is all coming under responsible marketing. And when there was a year when a company was applying for an award in responsible marketing, but then on a consumer promotion, which was in the public media, was advertising the use of fossil fuels. So that to me is going to get picked up for sure. So I hope I've answered that question. We are not going into social media impulsive comments, but we will definitely keep an eye open in the public media. So back to Ananda.
Thanks, Ravi. We are open now for questions. You could introduce yourself and ask the question, please.
Hello.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Yes, I am Amanda from Eco33 Private Limited, an energy conservation company. I want to know, is there any categorization on the scale of the company when applying for this? I mean, large scale, medium scale, and small based on their financial turnover or kind of parameter?
Yes, Amanda. In the application, there are two categories, and it's clearly mentioned in this category A is rupees 15 billion or over. Category B is the below 15 billion rupees per annum.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Any other? Any other questions?
Yeah, this is Charita. If it's okay, I have another question.
Yes, please, Charita, go ahead.
Sorry, I haven't really had a chance to go through all the documents. I saw the names mentioned, for example, in the presentation, but I didn't have time to research anything more than that. Just a question on the diversity and balance of the representation of the different judging panels, whether there is, for example, a business, well, ideally business as well as policy, as well as maybe conservation or other focus on the different panels, not only limited to the title of the panel, which could limit, I mean, the fact being that these are companies that the judges need to understand the corporate context as well.
Yeah. Yes, Chair, I think it's a very good question. I believe the judging panel has wide experience on different angles, and I'm not saying that any judging panel is perfect, but collectively we can reach to a fairly high level of judging. And also we do mark collectively, again, you would see like any section we have more than one panel member, and then there will be deliberations at that point. And then periodically we meet as a panel and we share ideas across sectors also. So there are plenty of opportunities provided within the panel to share ideas and get feedback from others. Yeah, I mean, your question is a very reasonable question. I agree with that. But this panel, I believe, has adequate experience to evaluate at this level.
Thanks. We will be able to see the profiles somewhere?
We could do that. We could do that. We'll post it in the chamber. Yes. Thanks, Chatwell. Any other questions?
Anand, I could add to what you mentioned that in our section, in the economic section, we have all three evaluators are very well experienced in the corporate sector. And all three of us have been in very long time in the private sector as well.
I think there's a question in the chat from another person as well.
Okay. Okay, good. Basically, the question is on is there is any difference or highlights in this time for application. It's built on the same platform, but there are a few additions we have added on the sustainability of like the business long-term sustainability and response or emergency response and that sort of things we have added a little bit. And then the gender focus was emphasized a little bit more from the last year. And then we are intending to bank on the CEO's commitment, and that is one of the areas that we will be focusing a little bit more in this year. Okay, application will be posted. If it is not there, the whole whole thing will be posted towards the end of the day. Application, I think the previous question, will this year's entry be a physical submission or digital application? It will be 100% digital applications, and there will be Dropbox spaces available to you to upload any material that there's plenty of space created by Chamber so that the whole set of material that you want to annex as the evidence or illustrative material that there will be space provided for you. And most of the directions also will be there when you go to the website next. Yes, PowerPoints, actually we can email. I think what I propose is like all the participants should get a link to the PowerPoints. I mean, it will be loaded on one place and you'll get the link to the directory.
Dr. Anand, I have a question.
Please.
Yeah, I'm Sharon from NDB. Good afternoon. Yeah, so now this application pertains to 2019, right?
It's April 19 to March 20.
Right. So my question is now you seem to be focusing on COVID-19 and the business response to that. So COVID
not so much, but yeah, Sharon, I thank you for asking that question. For the last 3 years, we had been going in this path to mainstream the evaluation are sort of like, I would call it examples, but we are not going total COVID-19, but we appreciate and highlight the importance of building into the core business, the business continuity and the emergency management. So that's what Ravi is also trying to highlight with that code red.
Okay, doctor, thank you.
Mr. Ravisil, you have a question. SDG 17 on partnerships is a key enabler. Would you mind answering that? SDG 17 on partnerships is a key enabler for broader impact. Does the criteria allows you? Till Ravi gets set up, Adish, I can answer that. We encourage you to mention the partnerships. So any innovation will go, Ravi. Okay, Ravi, sir.
It is almost a must that there should be partnerships where you should be able to get at whatever possible resources for you to achieve your targets. So trying to go it alone, it's a little difficult task. So SDG 17 is very, very important, not only for, for all other SDGs, to make sure that you get all the possible resources at the shortest possible time so that you may achieve your target, which is much more easier than trying to go it alone. Yes, definitely. It is important to suggest. It is you can propose it. You can show the partnerships that you are establishing to achieve whatever objectives you have.
I think the Charita's idea of having having a separate award, I think we can look into that, the merit of doing that. We will, as a panel, we will deliberate on that, Charita. Any other questions or
yes,
comments?
Good afternoon.
I think I like this. These ideas also coming through nicely. All right. Hello. So thank you so much for everyone for attention and the time on this, and then the chamber has a way of saying thank you. So I'm going to hand over the forum to the chambers. Amanda, are you in?
Dr. Ananda, thank you very much, and also to all of you, the panel, evaluation panel, and to all the applicants who have joined us today. We, as Oshadi said, we are having another session, a second phase for this webinar on the 17th of August, to which you can also join again. And this session was recorded, and we can share the link with you so you can revisit this and clear any doubts that you had. And again, let me also confirm that we will be sharing the application with all the applicants, and the application will be uploaded on the chamber website by tomorrow. So thank you very much again, and have a great afternoon. Thank you very much.